Well, hello, and welcome back to my desk. I'm Book, your friendly, faceless, nighttime book reviewer. And tonight, I've got two books for you. Books 79 and 80 of 100. And we've got a break from the murder, mystery, horror, thriller binge that I have been on lately. So, nice little change in pace. The books tonight are Enchantra by Kaylie Smith and A Touch Wicked by Katrina Kendrick. In the spirit of making these more concise, also I should mention, if it seems like the audio doesn't match the video and you didn't see my last one, unfortunately the microphone that I've usually been using has malfunctioned, and so I had to redo the audio for this video, and that's why. But as I was saying, in the spirit of trying to make these more concise, this video is going to be a lot shorter. Even though it is two books, so it might be a little bit longer, but besides that, I'm gonna jump right in. So our first book is Enchantra with the tagline, "Nothing is truly eternal." Welcome to Enchantra. There's only one rule. Never, ever trust your heart. When Genevieve Grimm's mother dies, she's left with questions no one can answer, until she receives an invitation to Enchantra, a cursed palace in Italy, frozen in time. Though denied entrance by the sinfully handsome yet hostile Rowan Silver, Genevieve finds her own way in, and soon realizes her mistake. For Enchantra is a twisted labyrinth where Rowan and his 6 siblings are trapped in a deadly game, at the mercy of a twisted devil and his ghastly spectators. Only one occupant of the house can survive. Genevieve now must win or die. Rowan warns her he's the deadliest of all the Silvers, that he always wins, that her only chance is to compete as his wife. So they must convince their audience they're desperately in love. And while Genevieve's willing to do whatever it takes to survive, she also knows she can't trust Rowan, that the desire burning between them is a lie. After all, it was Rowan who taught her Enchantra's first rule: never, ever trust your heart. Okay, jumping right into this, I am going to talk about the book jacket first. When I compare this to Phantasma, which is the first book in this kind of 2-book series, I gotta say, it seems like they kind of cheaped out on the finish. The first book is a really kind of luscious, soft matte, feels really good in your hands, and it really makes the details on the cover pop. This one is also a matte finish, but it's not a soft touch matte, and it just doesn't feel as good in your hands. It feels very sharp sounding. I guess it doesn't feel sharp. The sound that it creates is a very sharp sound. Also, there's kind of a weird reflective light reflection due to the finish choice that isn't, I don't know, it doesn't play as nice to the eyes. It doesn't play as nice to the hands, and it doesn't play as nice to the eyes. The cover design itself is actually really nice. It's really intricate. There are a lot of little details in it that relate to the story itself. That's really kind of my summary of how I feel about the aesthetics of this book. Now, about the actual content of the book, right away I'll say not a fan. I didn't read any spoilers of this book, but I did see a lot of kind of face value reviews of people saying that they really loved it, that it was so great, that if you read the first one, you're gonna love this one, it's so much better. And I will say I am not of that opinion. It might be a minority opinion, but I definitely like the first one better. I think the story was better. I think the character development was better. I think the characters themselves were more compelling, interesting. I just didn't really care for Genevieve, and I really didn't care for Rowan. I don't think he was interesting or like a fun love interest. I didn't feel the chemistry between them at all. I don't think it was developed well. And I don't know, I just wasn't hot here for this one. Yeah, I think the naming scheme of the siblings. So Rowan's real name is Rowington, and all of his siblings have like nicknames that are shorten their names. Like his is Rowan, but they all end in Ington, and I was just cringed so hard. I know that I talked about in one of my previous reviews that I hate naming in fantasy books. The naming of characters can really ruin a story. And every time I read Rowan's name, I knew that his name was actually Rowington. And that was always there in the back of my mind. And it was just so annoying. That's just a personal pet peeve, though. Mostly, I just didn't like the story. I didn't like the characters. I didn't feel the chemistry. I just I didn't care at the end of the book when there was like a conflict that had to be overcome. I wasn't really there, really rooting for the characters to resolve that. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is happening. I don't care. So, yeah, that's it. I had scribbled a lot of notes about this book, but basically, it just fell flat for me. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the spicy aspects of the book also just, I don't know, they weren't to my taste. It didn't feel like, I don't know, it missed the mark kind of on all fronts, this one, and that's just how I feel. Ultimately, I kind of get the feeling that it was rushed to print based on the kind of overwhelming success of Phantasma, and maybe if more time had been spent developing it, writing it, editing it, I don't know. A lot of people really like this book, so it could just be me. But, yeah, I'm a pass on this one. So then we had A Touch Wicked by Katrina, Kendrick. Let me read you what this one's about. The masquerade has only 2 rules. Depart by morning and never reveal your identity. He is London's most eligible bachelor. James, the Earl of Kent, is at the top of every debutante's list for marriage. He's handsome, wealthy, and on the lookout for a bride. But when he meets a mysterious beauty at London's most illicit club, fascination becomes intrigue, and she harbors deadly secrets. She is a penniless nobody. In a desperate bid to save her criminal sister, Emma Dumont infiltrates the Earl's household under false pretenses. When a clue leads her to a scandalous mask, she finds herself in the arms of her handsome employer and torn between duty and lethal attraction. As her sister's crimes threaten to expose Emma's deception, she becomes entangled in a brutal conspiracy, and with the truth comes danger. So, where Enchantra is kind of new age fantasy romance, A Touch Wicked is kind of classical romance genre. Kind of that English country, a high society person and a low class person cross paths and fall for each other, and there's complicated circumstances they have to overcome. But before I jump into the review, I'll talk about the aesthetics of this one. The finish on this book is very nice. It feels a lot better in your hands. It's not like overly soft or anything. I think the picture that they've chosen for the cover is kind of perfect for the story and visually very appealing. As for my actual review of the content of the book, unfortunately, this one is another hard pass. The story was very simple, very jumpy and kind of jerky, and I don't know, it was definitely very paint by numbers, classic romance story, and I just didn't appreciate it. It was like, I don't know, it's a really short book, so they had to kind of jam the whole story into a very small amount of time, but again, it was just kind of like, I don't care about these characters, they didn't establish them enough, and I don't really think that this book, the point of it was to have a story that you cared about. It was very much just kind of like your plucky romance story. There's not really a lot of depth, but I don't think that was the point either, but it also just wasn't really that good for what it actually was. So, yeah, I just wouldn't recommend this one either. Whereas kind of Enchantra has a story and world building in it, at least it has that aspect. This one, no, just no. I did just want to jump back to Enchantra for a second because there was something that I meant to say about it, which was that if you haven't read Phantasma, you are missing information that you should probably have that adds context to the events of this book. So if you're thinking of reading it without reading Phantasma, there's probably going to be some things that you encounter where they're not really going to make sense, or you're having questions. They aren't integral to the actual storyline. Maybe some of them are. But yeah, I would recommend reading the other one first, just so you have the background knowledge of the characters and kind of the jumping off point. And then when characters from Phantasma get pulled into the story, you understand what's going on and why they're there. So yeah, that's another thing that I think kind of about this book that I didn't really appreciate, was the kind of pulling in aspects of Phantasma without explaining them for people who hadn't read the first book. Yeah, so that's everything for this one, guys. I hope I was able to tell you enough for you to be able to decide for yourself. If you'd want to read either of these books, yeah, So thanks for joining me here tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.